Well, let's get cracking. Hi everybody, and welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and part 2 of the Academy 1/35th scale US Marine Corps M50A1 Ontos. So today I'm going to start working on this kit here, and if you watch the intro video you will know that this was a gift from my friend Keith Short. Again, Keith, thanks. So not gonna blab much, just gonna get working right on it. So let's turn the page and see what we've got first. All right, step one. So in this video I'm not going to do a absolute minute step-by-step, but I am going to follow along a little bit. What I'll do is I'll work on a section and then come back and talk about it, and kind of the way I've been doing my videos lately. So first thing I'm going to do, get this hull part cut out here, the lower hull, using my handy dandy God's Hand PN 120 cutting device. And then I'll use my handy dandy sanders and sand off these sprue gates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting off all these parts here, and we'll come back and take a look and see how everything seems to be fitting at this early stage of the game. All right, tip of the day. I've talked about this before, so some of you regular viewers just be saying, "You talking about this again?" Well, yes, I am. So here's the deal. With the old Tamiya extra thin cement, there's a right way and a wrong way to put this on. And people could say, well, that's your opinion. And yes, that's true, because I see a lot of people do it this way and that way, whatever. Here's the deal. This stuff is designed for a certain use. Now, a lot of times people will put the glue on there and then stick the part. That will work. However, sometimes you don't get that strong of a bond, especially if it's like you put the glue on there and then you bumble around trying to pick up the part, and by the time you get into place it's already evaporated somewhat, so it's still a little tacky, but you don't really get a really good weld. And that's especially prevalent when you have multiple parts you're gluing on, or a bigger part. So there's other glues for that, and I'll talk about that later. But what I'm going to talk about right now, what I'm going to talk about right now is where that putting in there is not such a bad idea. So here's what we do. Put your glue on there, and that'll soften it up. And basically I'm using it to tack the part in place like this, to get it in place, because see, that part is real wobbly. So if you just rely on that for your joint, your bond, you're looking for trouble. But you can use it to tack it into place. Then taking the glue, you just touch it to the seam, the contact point there, and capillary action will suck it down in there and will give you a nice firm bond. Okay, so that's really the best way to use it. Touch it to the part, let it flow between the parts so you get a good strong bond. Now, another advantage to doing this, especially on parts like these, now there's no like weld detail here around where this part goes. Sometimes there'll be like raised weld detail around it, and when you glue the place it simulates the weld. Well, sometimes it's not perfectly snug and bottomed out. and you'll have a little teeny tiny gap. And or if you have a place like here where there is no weld detail, you could still have a little bit of gap. So when you put your cement on there before it cures, just give it a good smash if you can. If you have to use tweezers or your finger or whatever, and what it will do is it will kind of, the plastic that has been dissolved by this glue or whatever liquid glue you happen to be using, it'll kind of squish and fill in that seam so you get a nice seamless fit. So it looks like it is welded on parts. Okay, hopefully that made sense. So, tip of the day, that's free. I'll move on. All right, so here is step 1 completed. All the swing arms are on, these track skids, the drive sprocket axle, and these 2 parts here. Now, there is not really a whole lot to talk about. It all fit nicely. I've built a couple of, I built a few Academy kits. I think the latest being a Tiger mid-production that Jim Cernaski sent to me. And that one fit together really well, and I pretty much expect the same from this, because so far it looks really good. All these axles here, on some of them there's just a little bit of movement, not much. So what I did is I just glued them all in place, and then I used my straight edge to make sure that all of the axles are the same height, so that way I don't have any floating wheels. So there's that. So far so good. So the next part I need to do is step 2, which is more of these track skid parts that go on the ends of these axles. So I need to build these sub-assemblies. There's B, which is the left side of the vehicle, and B, which is the left side, and A, which is the right side sub-assemblies. And they're all pretty much the same. Looks like the only difference is which skids go on which side, because both of these parts here, these cylindrical parts, are C30 and C31. Then the actual skids themselves are C44 and C43. So I'm going to get all those cut off, start putting those together, and let you know if there's anything that needs to be talked about. Okay, so I've got those parts all installed, these extenders here with the track skids. So the next thing I need to do is move on to step 3. And what I'm going to do for this part, because of the complexity and the tightness of this portion underneath the sponsons, is I'm going to build the wheels and drive sprockets, get those all done. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray underneath here, and I'm going to spray the wheels and drive sprockets and have all that done. And then the next thing I'm going to do is, once the paint dries, is I'm going to have to do some weathering underneath here, because the way this is constructed and the tightness underneath these sponsons, it would be really, really hard to paint and weather underneath here with all of this assembled with these additional suspension parts and this part here, whatever it's called. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the wheels together and the drive sprockets, get those all ready, and then I'm going to prime and paint underneath here. So I'll be back. All right, so I've got all this painted. I've got the rubber painted on the wheels. The colors I used, now I'm sure some will say, oh, that's not right, that's not the right color. Well, maybe not, but here's the deal. These are the colors I have. So I asked on the SMS Facebook page which color of the ones I had would be best for a Vietnam era U.S. Marine Corps vehicle. Now again, I'm going to freely admit it's probably totally wrong. So for those of you out there that are really into the colors being correct and stuff, I get it. But the owner, I can't remember his name, he runs the site. He suggested I go with all U.S. olive drab. Okay. And, you know, that's supposed to be more of an Army color than Marine color from the stuff I've read. But considering that I'm going to be doing a lot of weathering and stuff on this, it's just serving as a base anyway. So I'll leave it at that. For the wheels, I use obviously the same color, and then I use the MRP tire rubber matte, MRP 173 for the rubber portions. It's a very nice facsimile of rubber, you know, new rubber obviously, slightly faded, but again, it's all going to get weathered. So that's what I need to do next, is I need to do some weathering underneath the hull here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this light dust by Ammo by MIG, modeling pigment. I'm going to use that, and I am going to use some binder. This is Vallejo binder. It's in this awesome little drippy bottle. And I'm just going to make up, it's going to be like more of a really thick paint, kind of pasty stuff that I'm going to stipple on underneath here. Once I get that on there, then I'll use some dry pigments to get some variations in color and stuff like that. But I'm not going to spend a whole awful lot of time on that part underneath there, because it's for the most part going to be invisible behind the wheels and this overhang and these plates right here, whatever they are. So let's take a look here and get out one of my magical mixing dishes. These things are very cheap for a lot of them. They're very handy, and I even reuse them. I don't like to waste unnecessarily, but I use these things quite a bit. The bottom, the top, they just work great. So let me get some of this mixed up here, and then we'll start applying it. All right, so here we go. Start splotching this stuff on here like this. I don't want to have like a big giant muddy buildup. I just want to get it discolored. And messy. So when this stuff dries, it's going to be a little more dry looking, if that makes sense. It's not going to be all shiny like this, which is the way I want it. I want it to be I just want to create a layer of it on here. Something else I want to do is I want to make sure that the top of these skids don't have stuff on them, because I'm going to be hitting that up. After I make sure they're not rubber or something weird, I'm going to be hitting it up with some graphite to make it look like you know, it's been burnished down to the metal. So that looks pretty good right there. So I'm going to let this dry for a bit, and we'll come back and take a look and see what it looks like. All right, well, that weathering stuff is drying up. I'm going to go ahead and assemble one of these sides here, and test fit it and make sure everything fits, because I'm going to have to paint this before I actually glue it on there. So let me cut these parts off and we'll take a look at that once it's done. All right, so here's something interesting. It calls out these parts as being C19, C18. No, they're B. B19, B18. So just something to watch for so you don't get confused. All right, so here they are glued together. And you have to be careful. Make sure you get the right side, or the correct side parts, because it does make a difference. But yeah, other than that, they're ready to go for painting. So I'll assemble the other ones, give them a quick shot of paint. They'll be ready to start installing them. All right, so I got this one glued on. This is what they look like before they're glued on, and it fits on there pretty good. This round drum looking thing fits in this groove right here on this, and these holes not line up. Now one thing, and I was kind of concerned about it when I first put this thing together, but these 3 points here don't line up. Okay, this one is a little bit lower. See? And it's supposed to be like that. That's the way it fits. So it just goes just like, whoops, almost forgot this. This goes here like this. Then this goes here like this. Just like that. And then just glue it on there. And now we're good to go. There you have it, both sides. So now this is ready to weather here, but I don't have to really do that until after I do the rest of this stuff. So that will end step number 4. Alrighty then, so I've got that done. I added some more just to break it up. I got some dark earth and put down inside, and then used some Wilder pigment fixer to get it to kind of set into place. So that part is done. So I'm ready to move on to step number 5, which is the rear hull plate, and from there working on the upper hull parts. So ends part 2 of the Academy U.S. Marine Corps M50A1 Ontos. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to follow along more on this build or check out some of my other builds, please hit the subscribe button so you can stay notified of whenever I post new stuff. If you have any hints, tips, concerns, questions, or if you have any experience with this particular kit, I would appreciate hearing from you in the comments section down below. So until next time for part 3, as always, thanks for watching Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and I will see you all later.